So this time is going to be mostly for Rick, but I want to tell you what happened last night at about 8 o'clock. Joe Dredge, former Score employee, shot me a text and said, hey, Tanny had a Super Bowl party. I went. Great time. Camp was also invited. You have to ask him to tell his story about where he went first. Rick, take it away, my friend.
So I had never been to the Tannehill residence before, so I was going off of the proper address that I was given. I got to about like one turn away, and judging by the distance, I was like, okay, I don't need my GPS anymore. Turn it off. Make the turn, go park. I'm like, okay, street address. Yeah, checks out. I see somebody by the front door I don't recognize, but, it could be...
It's a party.
Yeah, it's a party. It could be family. Could be somebody else's friend. Go up to the door, and I was like... And the guy looked at me like, who are you? And I was like, oh, well, Chris invited me. And they were like, oh, okay. Chris. So then I go in, I put my beer down, introduce myself. The people introduce themselves to me. I sit down and wait a few minutes, figuring he's probably... figuring he's probably and anybody else that I know is like in a basement or something, or in just a different room.
You're out on the back porch or something.
Yeah, and for me, there were a couple red flags, but I have a lot of I have anxiety when I go to a new place, so I was just like, this is just me being anxious. Just go through it. I'm trying to be better about it.
What were the red flags?
Well, just that there was nobody that I knew. I don't really know anybody's cars, so I couldn't judge off of that. But the house
Everyone's
number...
speaking Vietnamese.
Right? So... But the house number was exactly the same. So I was like, so that was the first thing. If it hadn't, I wouldn't have even bothered. Okay. So I go in and I sit down, and these people are very nice. I'm sitting there for about 5 minutes, and I'm like, this just seems wrong. So I text Tanny. I'm like, am I at the right place? He walks out of his door, apparently, and so do a couple guys that are there. And then he calls me, and it was loud in there, so I go outside.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm standing right outside my place right now. And I'm like, I'm standing right outside the place I was just in. So,
no.
So I realize that I'm like a block off. So I don't go back in. I do not grab the beer as a sunk cost. I cut my losses. I get in my car and I go the next block over to Tanny's.
So there's nothing. You just ghosted.
100%.
And they're going to wonder, remember that guy that came over that
Seriously?
one time?
Oh, and the thing is, those people could not have been nicer, considering I'm legitimately a total stranger walking into their house.
But was there a Chris?
Yes, they had a cousin Christopher, and they're like, oh, okay. We're like, we didn't know he was coming, but, it's kind of like one of those standing invite things. So they're like, if he doesn't pop over here quick, you can stay for the game. And that was about when I texted Tanny. I'm like, I think something's wrong here.
That's phenomenal.
It is absolutely fit. So obviously, we need your help. If you were at the party where some random person showed up claiming that he knew Chris,
wearing a Boban shirt,
and just left. Yeah. If you know someone who told you a story of a man just showing up to their Super Bowl party and then leaving in a hurry,
oh my God.
Please find those people. We need to talk.
I didn't leave in a hurry.
Right.
I went out to take the phone call and then just never went back in.
You had half the Velveeta.
Well, they offered, they
sampled
offered
everything.
Food. I figured, for the awkward interaction, the beer was at least something to leave.
Fabulous.
As if I didn't have enough anxiety going to new places before. Let's put this on top.
You'll never
of
leave
it.
the
This
house
won't happen again. This won't happen again. This is why
mistake you make once.
This is why you bring your wife with you, because she would immediately have said,
she was working.
Yeah, you immediately said, yeah, this isn't right, because she would have known. That's awesome.
Oh my God.
It's just staggering incompetence.
I'm stunned he didn't go get his beer back.
Right.
How can you not go get your beer?
Well, also to apologize. I'm sorry. Wrong Chris, wrong house. I'll just take my beer and be on my way. Sorry for partying.
I love how he envisions Tanny to be in a basement.
Yeah, I'm like he's like or anyone else I know in a basement, as common with people that I know. They're just in basements.
Thought something might be off when he mentioned
Red flags was
Chris
also there. Yeah,
might be coming or might not be coming.
Well, okay.
I think it's his house after all.
So 5:23 p.m., Demi Lovato's about to sing the national anthem. And, I don't know how many times he tried to call or how long he was at this other residence. But 5:23, I get the text, am I at the wrong place? And so I'm like, oh, no, you have that moment of just utter despair when you're like, oh, no, out of all people, I sent Campy the wrong address,
Yeah.
Typo, you're firing it off. You think it's all good. Then you scroll back up in the text thread history like, oh, thank God. I sent him the right address. Campy is just an idiot.
Yeah, right. It's Campy in the wild. Like, he should be able to fend for himself out there.
He
Yeah.
abandoned his GPS before it says you've reached you have arrived at your destination.
I'm going to say if there's a draft on most important parts of GPS, you've reached your destination. That's number one. The final step is the most important.
But he says the numbers
Usually
right.
it
His
is,
GPS didn't get him on the right street.
Yeah, so
Like,
okay,
he
so-
wasn't even on the right street by the time he decided,
only thing-
I'm going to turn this off.
The only thing I can offer up on this is obviously I live in the Northwest Side. It's still the grid, but because of traffic flow, there's a street. They don't want you to turn right on my street. It's not a one way or anything, but it's easier if you go on the street just east or just west of it, depending on where you're coming from. So that was the only wrinkle in there. So I call him. The game's kicked off already, and I'm calling him. I'm like, okay, all right, buddy, where you at? What are your cross streets? So, and just silence.
good Lord.
And I don't know if he's in the house at that point.
How long did he stay inside with the people he didn't know? How long did he visit with them?
I mean,
minutes.
I want to know what the conversations
Did he
were.
have something to eat?
Campy's like
Check
trying
out
to
their
talk
spread?
about an NBA game from this afternoon. Like
Yeah.
how he tries to introduce himself.
Bernstein
how
said
that
someone shows up in a
conversation
Boban
goes.
shirt, and that's how you know Campy's at your party.
But also,
Why
if
is Andy Reid's lost son here?
that's awesome. But if you go to a Super Bowl party and there's no one there, but you're expecting
Maybe they're
five
in the
to
basement like everyone else.
5 to 10 people that to be there, don't you go find at least one person that you know?
Think about how intimidating that would be if you do go down to the basement and then there's no one there either. Now you're kind of committed.
The quick little postscript on this, which Campy did not divulge in the midway, which is shocking because usually everything's in there.
Yeah.
So Campy later tells me, we all had a good fun. Tony Gill's there, Herb's there. We were all laughing like, oh, it's mostly white neighborhoods, and we're like, oh man, good thing Tony or Herb didn't walk into the house. It's like Sidney Poitier, guess who's coming to dinner? But we find out much after the fact. Like I'm talking like after the game, Campy's like, yeah, Tanny, I know your wife's Guatemalan. They were Latino, so I thought maybe her family was there.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Shep,
He
can
probably
you
just assumed they all lived with you, right?
Shep, can you say
believe her in
that
the
line in Campy's voice, please? Just
Danny, I know your wife is Guatemalan, and there's Latinos there, so I thought you were somewhere. I'm trying to find Tanny, but he's in the basement, apparently.
Campy was living in a Latino world there for a few moments.
I'm living in a Latino world.
So, that's my favorite part of the story that was omitted. But then my favorite part of just the event was the party's broken up into two factions. My guys upstairs and my wife and her work friends downstairs, and then slowly word begins to spread upstairs through downstairs. Like, hey, did you hear what happened to Rick when he got here? No. You didn't hear what happened to Rick. Oh my God, Rick, tell him what happened to you. And so just telling the story 5 or 6 different times to people, and everyone just laughing hysterically,
dying.
Yeah,
you got to go over and introduce yourself.
That's what we said. After the game, all right, got plenty of Italian beef, plenty of wings here. We got to go over there and have a peace offering. Hey, thanks for taking care of our guy Campy.
Can I get some of my beer?
And get Campy's beer back if it hasn't all been used.
What an odd story from their perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Guy comes over, drops off a 6-pack, and then never shows up again.
Guy was at the wrong house. He was so embarrassed he didn't come in to take his beer with. Hey, we got free beer. What kind of beer was it? Was it nice beer? Was it good beer?
I have no idea.
We know.
Well, it was Modelo. So we had a few laughs about that as well.
Okay, go ahead and give it to him for
Danny, I
Modelo.
thought your wife would want this.
That's amazing. He's just trying so hard to fit in everywhere he goes.
He brings salsa.
He did not. No, I was so mad because you're outside of your own house and the Super Bowl's going on.
Yeah.
And you're babysitting Rick Camp.
Right.
I'm like, everyone else found a way to get here, and there's Campy. He doesn't even know where he
They
is.
watched their GPSs until it got them to the destination. Not a street over and park their car.
Tanny's right. That's important for the woman to say you have arrived at your destination. I kind of like hearing that.
In 400 feet. No, I got this.
Exactly.
Oh, God. If you could pick anyone at the score for it to happen to.
Oh, it's really
Oh,
ideal.
yeah, it's him.
Right.
It's him.
I mean, maybe less.
Well, I mean, I can see Shane doing it, but like actually fitting in at the house, cooking them food. They love his company. He
Making
doesn't show up to
friends.
my party at all. Yeah,
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
What happened to you? Oh, I was a block away.
Yeah, Shane's the chameleon. Shane would have been fine.
Shane's an intimidating looking dude, though. I mean,
Yeah, Ginger shows up at your door,
Yeah.
embracing the outlaw life.
I mean, Camp looks like. Camp is just a
Looks like a
teddy
Pillsbury
bear.
doughboy.
Yeah, he is. He's got a doughy face and he's got a high pitched voice, and you know,
Loves the NBA and Latinas.
you kind of felt bad for him
doesn't?
because he probably looked like 14-year-old Andrew Reed once upon a time, looming over the other kids in the neighborhood.
He was going to do a punt, pass, and kick during halftime.
I just would kill to know, like, when Campy's sitting in their living room. Like, what is that conversation? Like, oh, I'm Rick. I work with Chris. You
no,
guys-
Chris. Oh, yeah. I don't even know if he's coming. But,
Wasn't that a giveaway? Like that the guy might not be coming who's supposed to live there?
So did he say that in the clip that they said, oh, we didn't know Chris was coming? Campy said that?
Yeah.
Dude, then that's staggering incompetence. Like, you've got to know.
We don't know if he's coming to his own party.
I'm known for throwing Super Bowl parties at other people's houses. So it's part of my shtick.
Tanny always says that. Okay. God, I love Rick Camp.
I like how also Campy described it as the street address checks out. Well, the address checks
numbers
out.
check out.
The street apparently doesn't check out whatsoever.
I mean, the 4 numbers, the 4 digits on my house, they're all over the city.
That's good.
What a guy. Oh, man. Coming up next, the other side of the Rick Camp story. That's right. We found the
This
people.
is still ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah.
I love it. Every time you say it, the guy who hosted Rick Camp coming up at 4:30.
That's right.
It's like we're watching a true crime series, and this is what actually happened.
Listen, if it was Dickens who walked into this party, it'd be nothing.
I'd stay.
Yeah, but if it was you who walked into this party, but Rick Camp went to the wrong house for a Super Bowl party. It was a house filled with Latinos and Latinas. He thought it was Tanny's wife's family because she's Guatemalan.
I certainly would have stayed there.
He stayed, assuming all of his friends were in the basement during Demi Lovato's national anthem of the Super Bowl. He happened to bring Modelo a 6-pack, and then he ghosted the party upon finding out he was in the wrong. Didn't say goodbye, left the beer, just bounced. I'm sorry, I need closure on the story. How awkward was he? Was he the only white person there?
This has been branded as the other side of the story, I think, by some people around here today.
Yeah.
Which I love, as if we're going to get some other, Campy was just, he tore the place up, he started breaking bottles.
I just want to know. I'm sorry. Listen, this is going to last 5 minutes. I just want to know. I want to know what it was like to experience Rick Camp walking into that house and be going, am I the only one who wants to know? I don't think so. But if I am, I don't care. I want to know. I want to know what this was like. I got questions. I got a list of questions. We'll be done here in 5 to 7 minutes. But man, I cannot wait. And then we may or may not have Rick Camp on hold listening to the entire thing. We might have him apologize. We might ask him follow-up questions on the back end. But we will have closure of Rick Camp's Super Bowl mishap coming up on the Score.
McNeil and Parkins flashback.
I was going off of the proper address that I was given. I got to about like 1 turn away, and judging by the distance, I was like, okay, I don't need my GPS anymore. Turn it off. I see somebody by the front door I don't recognize, but It could be
a party.
Yeah, it's a party. And the guy looked at me like, who are you? And I was like, oh, well, Chris invited me. And they're like, oh, okay. So then I go in, I put my beer down, introduce myself. The people introduce themselves to me. For me, there were a couple red flags.
What were the red flags?
Well, just that there was nobody that I knew. So I go in and I sit down, and these people are very nice. I'm sitting there for about 5 minutes, and I'm like, this just seems wrong. So I text Tanny. I'm like, am I at the right place?
I like this kind of party. I like this kind of party, baby.
I'm irrationally excited for this. This texter, you're my spirit animal. The idea of this upcoming interview is completely ridiculous, but I am all in. It's because it's campy. It's because his baseline level of existence is social awkwardness. The guy he has that about him. We love him. He's great. He's a friend of mine. He used to produce my show. But the idea of Rick Camp walking into a house where he wasn't supposed to be, thinking it was Chris Tannehill's Super Bowl party, and then staying for 5 to 10 minutes and then ghosting is objectively funny. So we've been enraptured by this story at the station all week since the Super Bowl. Everyone was getting Rick Camp's version of the story, which is all well and good. He told it with Dan and Connor. He told it with Lawrence. He told it with Joe Ostrowski. We got Tanny's side of the equation, which was equally hilarious from actually, the Super Bowl party he was supposed to be at. But the one missing ingredient to the story were the people who saw Rick Camp in their house on Super Bowl Sunday without knowing who the hell Rick Camp is. So without further ado, on the Alpamonte Ford hotline, Alpamonte Ford in Melrose Park, I bring to you Eddie. Eddie, how are you, my friend?
Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? How you doing?
We're really, really well. So just tell us the story of your Super Bowl Sunday and your encounter with Rick Camp.
All right, so I'm at my house. I got a couple of friends over, my cousin's over, my son Jay, and we're kind of just hanging out, watching the game. And I ordered a pizza. This is what makes the story funny. I ordered a pizza, and my Ring doorbell tells me that somebody's there. So I get up, I go to the front, and I see this random guy at the end of my driveway, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty fast for a pizza on a Super Bowl. Sunday, 25 minutes. So I see this guy. He opens his door. He makes eye contact with me. Now, mind you, it's about 50 feet away. And then I'm like, okay, for sure it's a pizza guy because we're all starving. And I see he opens his back door. I'm like, oh, he's getting the pizza out. So all of a sudden, he's got a six-pack. I noticed he's got a six-pack of Modelo beer. And he's walking up my driveway.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this random guy just walking up my driveway. He looks kind of shy, kind of like, I was like, okay. So he makes it all the way up to the door. I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? Because I didn't know who he was. And he goes, hey, how you doing? I'm Rick. I'm Chris's friend. I said, oh, okay. And mind you, I have a cousin named Christopher, and we call him Chris. So we all thought it was Chris's friend. And my son had been playing basketball with Chris earlier that morning at the gym. So I thought maybe my son just kind of like invited him. And so we kind of just made his way into my house, just walked in. And he had, like I said, he had his beer with him. He puts the beer down on the table. My little 6-year-old daughter, Maya, runs up to him. Hi, how are you? And he's like, hi, Maya, I'm Rick. And she's talking there about her toys, some LOL dolls or something. He's being really nice, really polite with her, but he was kind of like, he was awkward, he was kind of shy, kind of like, you could tell he knew he wasn't supposed to be there, and in the back of my head, I was so mad at my cousin Christopher for not giving me a heads up, that his buddies were coming, which, everybody's invited to my house. I don't care, but, at least tell me. So he just sits down on my sofa and he just starts like, he's on his phone. I told him, why don't you call Chris or I'll call Chris? And he's on his phone and, a few minutes go by, maybe 5-6 minutes. And I think that's when the light went off in his head. Like, dude, maybe I'm at the wrong place, So he's like, I'm going to go outside and make a phone call. He goes outside. and he's on my steps in front, and all of a sudden you just see him kind of creep away. He gets into his car and he takes off.
Oh my God!
Absolutely hilarious.
So,
yeah,
so Eddie, we're talking to Eddie, who hosted Rick Camp unknowingly at his Super Bowl party. So you told him, why don't you call Chris, and he stayed?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
But he was going to Chris's house. Like, in his head, he was going to Chris's house. How does that make any sense?
I guess, you know what, now that you say it, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
But my oldest son, Jay, he was there, and, that's why I let him in the house, because, he seemed like a real nice kid, dressed nice. He didn't pose a threat to us. So I'm like, this has got to be one of my cousin's buddies, because, they all kind of look the same. I'm like, yeah, come on in, buddy.
Sure.
And I told him, too.
You're an inviting guy.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? If my cousin Chris happens to not show up, you can stay here. I mean,
were you worried he was going to eat all your food?
It was funny you say that, because the pizza had just gotten there like after he came in, and I asked him, I said, do you want some pizza? Do you want something to eat? And he kindly said no, thank you.
Oh.
And you could really see him though getting like nervous.
Sure.
The poor guy was just. Oh my God, he was just out of it.
Was he the only white guy at the party?
No, not really. My son, he's half Mexican.
Okay.
And one of my buddies, but other than that, yeah.
So he stuck out a little bit like a sore thumb. So, when he left and he left the beer, were you guys confused? Did you drink the Modelo? Is what I'm asking.
You know what? To be honest with you, no. And I'll tell you why. I thought it was kind of like, I didn't know if this was a setup, if it was a joke. I'm like, here's this random guy, shows up to a house. I mean, we're all like Mexican American in this house. He shows up with Modelo beer. I'm like, this has got to be a joke. This is one of my buddies from work, busting my chops or something.
Sure.
And then when he left, we were just kind of like in awe. We were kind of like in shock for like 15 minutes, because we're like, okay, who is he? So we finally get in touch with Christopher, my cousin. And he's like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know Rick. And we're like, yeah, right. Really funny. That was a great one. And I believed him finally. And we came up with, well, you know what? I think he got the wrong address.
Yep. So you guys figured it out. Now, we're talking to Eddie here. He hosted Rick Camp for a few minutes at a Super Bowl party. Have you gone back and looked at the Ring doorbell video footage? Is that archived anywhere?
Yes, I sent it. I sent it to one of the guys. So when he left the house,
you sent it to who? Send it to someone at the Score?
Yeah, I sent it to somebody at the Score. What the heck was his name?
Sean.
Sean. Yeah, I sent it to Sean. So Sean's got it. But unfortunately, there was so much activity I didn't get when he was coming up my stairs, but I got everything when he left. You could see him, standing at my steps, kind of just like thinking, like, what should I do? And then you see him walk to the front of my yard, and then he slowly gets in his car and just drives away.
It was a walk of shame.
Yeah, we didn't know if he was going to come back or not. I'm like, it was pretty nice of him to leave the beer. It's okay. And yeah, it's kind of like nobody's drank it. It's kind of like a trophy there,
No, someone left the trophy. That's incredible. Well, let's reunite these party goers. These are friends. Campy, can we put Rick Camp on, please, with Eddie, the Super Bowl host? Rick, we're gonna have Ring doorbell video footage of you. I can only imagine how much you're blushing right now. That sounds like that beer has not been drank. Would you like to say anything to Eddie?
I appreciate you having me.
Anytime. You can come back anytime you want, man. You're a nice guy.
Campy, when he said, why don't you call Chris to see if he's coming, why didn't you immediately put it together? I don't understand.
Well, I was texting Chris by that time, if I remember right. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I remember like blow by blow every second, but by that time, because like most of you guys that have like seen me at a party, I'm not one that normally wants to sit more often than not. But Eddie and the guys were so nice; they insisted I sit down. So by that point, I'm texting Chris when he's like, maybe you should call Christopher. And I'm like, all right. So I'm texting Tannehill already when that happens. And then, just waiting for a response. And that's when Tanny calls me. That's when I dip outside. And, I'm not going to lie. Obviously, I was so embarrassed that I just left. And I'm like, here's a phone cost. Hopefully they enjoy it. And at that point, I'm like, what am I going to do? Walk back in and say, hey, you guys are nice people. I'm just a moron, and I'm going to go to the place where I was supposed to be.
You should have come back in and just stayed for the game.
Oh, God, it's so great. Well, Eddie, thank you very much. Please stay in touch so that we can get that ring footage, and we'll have to reunite you and Rick Camp at a SCORE event sometime in the future, all right? Thank you very much. We've been waiting for your side of the story for the last 4 days. Thank you.
No problem, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Campy.
No problem.
That is Eddie and Rick Camp.
Oh, it's a huge problem.
He doesn't sound happy, does he?
No, but I hope that this dies today for Campy's sake.
You think he's upset? You think Campy's mad? Is he still talking to Rick?
Yeah.
Put Rick back on the air. Tell him I've got one more question for him. Tell him I got one more question for him, and then it ends. I got one more question. Is it Rick? Are you angry?
No. I mean, it's a funny story. I'm not trying to say I'm not dumb and I'm not an idiot. Like, I'm basically arguing 80% idiot versus 100% idiot, essentially. And essentially, just I mean, I know I'm socially awkward more often than not, but some of the ways it's been portrayed is not great. Like, at first trying to make it sound like I brought Modelo specifically because of, I think Odie's family might be there or something. That's not true at all. I wanted Modelo, so I got Modelo. You're also thinking that I'm thinking too much about this. So,
dude, we never said honest, you brought the Modelo because Tanny's wife is Guatemalan. If anyone said it was Tanny.
Mac made the joke. Yeah. Mac's the one that asked about the beer. So
it was a joke.
No, I mean, I put myself in the situation. The situation's hilarious. If I was like that embarrassed and not realizing how funny it was, I would have never told anybody, and I would have just showed up at Tanny's, been like, "Oh yeah, I wasn't sure if I was at the right place." It's too good of a story not to tell.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's all.
All right. So are you gonna be mad if I tweet out the Ring doorbell footage?
We're not going to do that. I don't think we can access it.
Yeah, that's probably too far for me. I think that's kind of crossing the line, probably, but
crossing a line.
We just confirmed with the Phenom it's a corrupted file and we cannot play.
We can't upload it anyway. Okay.
You need the guy's login, I think. All right. Yeah, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, no, crossing the line would definitely be Rick Camp walking across a yard to his car. That's way too far. Okay, Camp, listen. No ill intent, no malice, just a funny story, buddy. Okay, we all love you. It's just hilarious.
All right.
All right. That's Rick Camp.
So you don't want my thoughts on Jordan McRae going to the Nuggets and being a Schuster guy off the bench?
I don't know what you're talking about, but thank you. There he goes. That's Rick Camp. Man, I'm telling you, other than Grobber, the number one pick of the SCORE draft, if I could pick it to happen to anybody, it would be Rick Camp. We're McNeil and Parkins on the SCORE. This hour on the SCORE brought to you by CarX. Save up to $200 on 4 tires installed at CarX. The bottom of the hour was brought to you by Northwestern Basketball. Join Northwestern Hoops at the new Welsh Ryan Arena this season. Remaining home opponents include Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota. Single game tickets to see Chicago's Big Ten team are on sale now at nusports.com. But the segment brought to you by your Chicagoland Papa John's. Papa John's has done it again. They've created the all-new Papadilla. It's not a pizza and it's not a sandwich. It's something in between. Try one of our 4 flavors: Philly cheesesteak, meatball pepperoni, grilled barbecue chicken, or their signature Italian for just $6. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks to Rick Camp for coming on the show. That was my favorite segment of the week. It was like a live radio episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I just loved every minute of it. It was chef's kiss. Beautiful.
So we didn't get any A-listers at all this week.
Yeah, I noticed.
But that was too solid, at least for our universe, 2 solid C-listers for our universe.
Yeah.
For the show's universe, solid C.
Absolutely.
Does that equal to an A, maybe?
I mean, it did for me in school. Yeah, that's fine. It's about as good as we could have expected.
The absence of a D or F.
Yeah, exactly. Middle road is fine. But I really enjoyed it. If it's not going to be an A-lister, make it hilarious and awkward. Yeah, I'm on the board. That's so great. I was already texting Chris. You think I didn't know? But I like to be standing. Anybody who's been at a party knows I like to stand at parties.
Yeah, he's famous for that. I feel so awful that I didn't have my phone in my hand at all times. Like I could have nipped this in the bud and Campy would have been saved to terrible embarrassment. But sorry, I'm entertaining people at my home.
The idea that I
gave you the right address. After that, it's out of my hands.
The ring video footage, that's what's crossing the line. That's the thing that's too far. I love it. Everything about it, from the Modelo to the story from Eddie's side, it's just beautiful.